I want you to try and picture something that, well, it kind of defies the laws of nature.
Okay, listening.
Imagine a massive blue whale, right? It's the largest creature on Earth. It takes up this massive amount of space in the ocean, and it moves with this very slow, undeniable momentum.
Right. It's huge. It's slutty.
Exactly. Now imagine that this exact same blue whale somehow possesses the metabolism, the agility, and like the sheer heart rate of a tiny hyperactive hummingbird.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, the physics of that are entirely wrong.
Right. When things get that big, they are supposed to slow down. They get bureaucratic, they get sluggish, they coast on their mass.
Yeah, I mean, it is the standard corporate life cycle. Gravity always wins eventually.
Exactly.
Growth plateaus, innovation gets bogged down in, endless committee meetings, and you transition from being this scrappy disruptor to just sort of managing your own decline.
Right.
That is what history tells us is supposed to happen to these corporate leviathans, particularly those that have dominated a single sector for, over 2 decades?
But then you step into the world of big tech in the year 2026, and suddenly that rulebook is just completely shredded.
Oh, absolutely thrown out the window.
Today, we are diving into a company so unfathomably large that it touches almost every single aspect of your digital life.
Yeah.
Your phone's operating system, the videos you watch on your living room TV, your work documents, your navigation maps, the search engine you use dozens of times a day.
It's everywhere.
And yet, despite being a multi-trillion-dollar behemoth, it is somehow growing at the speed of a scrappy, desperate Silicon Valley startup working out of a garage.
That's wild.
We are unpacking Alphabet's Q2 2026 earnings call today, and we've got the full, unvarnished transcript here featuring CEO Sundar Pichai, Chief Business Officer Philip Schindler, and CFO Anat Ashkenazi.
And this call, it's huge. We are officially moving past the theoretical hype cycle of AI and into the raw industrial deployment phase.
Yeah, the real deal.
For years, the conversation was so abstract, like, what will artificial intelligence actually do? When will it arrive? How are we going to make money off this?
Right, all those think pieces.
Exactly. But this specific earnings call is the definitive quantitative proof that it has arrived, it is fully deployed, and it is generating cash at a scale that is genuinely difficult for the human brain to comprehend.
So let's start by staring directly into the sun here. The headline numbers are just the definition of shockers.
Let's hear them.
In Q2 of 2026, Alphabet's total revenue hit $119.8 billion. And that is, just to be clear, for a single 3-month period.
Yeah, to contextualize that scale, you really have to look at sovereign nations.
Right.
There are over 100 countries on Earth whose entire annual gross domestic product is less than what Alphabet generated in 90 days.
That is insane.
We are dealing with nation-state levels of capital flowing through their server architecture.
And the sheer size isn't even the most surprising part to me. It's the velocity.
Right, the growth rate.
That revenue is up 24% year over year, or 23% in constant currency. I mean, if a mid-sized, agile tech company grows at 24%, Wall Street throws a parade.
Oh, they lose their minds.
For a nearly $2 trillion company to accelerate its growth by 24%, it signals a structural shift in the global economy.
Yeah, it really does.
And their operating income jumped 30% to $40.8 billion. That gives them a 34% operating margin.
Huge.
And the engine behind all that? Google services, that's search and YouTube ads mostly, that drove 95 billion of that total, which is up 15%.
This completely dismantles the prevailing narrative from 2023 and 2024.
Oh, the doom and gloom stuff.
Yeah, everyone was warning that AI was going to be this devastating cost center for big tech.
Right.
The fear was that these massive language models were so computationally expensive to run, requiring so much silicon and electricity per query, that they would just eat Google's historic profit margins alive.
Right, cannibalize the whole thing.
Yeah. But these numbers signal the exact opposite. The AI bump is actively generating massive corporate revenue, and it's expanding their margins.
So they figured it out.
They did. They have engineered their way out of the cost deficit and figured out how to monetize generative AI incredibly efficiently.
Well, wait. I want to challenge this narrative of flawless execution for a second, though.
Okay, lay it on me.
Because reading through Anat Ashkenazi's section of the transcript, the new CFO there, is a glaring contradiction. She proudly reports this $40.8 billion in operating income, right? And they are paying out a 22-cent per share cash dividend.
Right.
But almost in the exact same breath, she notes that Alphabet had a negative free cash flow of $5.9 billion for the quarter.
Yeah, that caught a lot of people off guard.
I mean, wait, if I run a mid-sized logistics firm and I boast about a 34% profit margin, but I end the quarter overdrawn by $6 billion because I bought too many warehouses, my board fires me on the spot.
Oh, instantly.
So how does Wall Street look at a negative cash flow of nearly $6 billion from the most profitable search engine on Earth and not trigger a massive sell-off?
Well, it requires a fundamental understanding of how capital expenditures, or CapEx, function right now in the era of artificial intelligence.
Okay, break that down for us.
You really have to separate operating income from free cash flow. So operating income is the profit they make from their core business operations.
Selling ads, renting cloud space.
Exactly. YouTube subscriptions, all of that, minus the direct costs of running those services. That metric shows the fundamental health of the business model.
Right.
And a 34% margin indicates that the underlying business is wildly, undeniably healthy.
Okay, but then what about the missing $6 billion?
Right. So free cash flow is what remains after the company pays for its physical infrastructure. This is the money spent on tangible, hard assets.
The CapEx.
Yes. Buildings, land, specialized silico, data centers, massive networking equipment. Alphabet generated operating cash flow of $39.1 billion, but their CapEx was $44.9 billion for the quarter.
Wow.
Yeah. And 60% of that went straight to servers, while 40% went to data centers and networking equipment.
So they're literally outspending their own astronomical income.
Purely to fund the physical build-out of the AI era, yeah.
So they are just draining the checking account and tapping into their reserves, which Ashkenazi noted sits at a very comfortable $242.5 billion in cash and marketable securities, by the way.
Yeah, it's a nice safety net.
Right. So they are doing this intentionally. They believe the existential future of their entire ecosystem depends on possessing the most physical compute power on the planet, regardless of the short-term optical hit to cash flow.
Exactly. They recognize that artificial intelligence is, at its core, a game of scale.
The biggest models win.
Yes. The models that win are the ones trained on the largest clusters of compute. Wall Street forgives the negative free cash flow because every dollar spent on a server today is viewed as like securing a monopoly on the cognitive infrastructure of tomorrow.
Which means the word cloud is actually a terrible metaphor.
It really is.
It's not some magic vapor floating in the sky. It is concrete, it is steel, it is copper wire, it is highly engineered cooling systems, and it requires staggering amounts of electricity.
Oh, it's very heavy physical stuff.
Right. And Alphabet is buying up as much of the physical Earth as humanly possible to support this. And that brings us to the fastest growing part of their entire empire. Google Cloud.
The financials here are just breathtaking.
Hit me with the numbers.
Google Cloud revenue hit $24.8 billion in Q2. That is an 82% year-over-year growth.
Wait, 82%?
Yeah, an 82% acceleration on a business unit that was already generating tens of billions of dollars. It's almost unprecedented.
That is staggering.
And it gets better. Their cloud operating margin jumped from 20.7% in the second quarter of last year to a staggering 35.6% this quarter.
Wow.
Operating income for the cloud more than tripled year over year to $8.8 billion.
Okay, for the longest time, the narrative was that Amazon Web Services, AWS, was the undisputed king of cloud infrastructure.
Right, they owned it.
And then Microsoft Azure was the silver medalist, heavily bolstered by that huge OpenAI partnership.
Yep.
And Google Cloud was the plucky bronze medalist fighting for whatever market share was left. But an 82% growth rate suggests a complete paradigm shift. What exactly is Google selling in the cloud right now that the others aren't?
Well, they're no longer just selling remote digital storage or basic web hosting. They are selling integrated AI solutions at an industrial scale.
Okay.
Sundar Pichai noted that nearly 90% of the Fortune 100 are now using Gemini Enterprise.
90%?
Yeah. We're talking about PepsiCo using it for predictive analytics, Intel streamlining their core semiconductor design processes, HSBC deploying it for wealth management, Macy's overhauling commerce experiences.
So it's everywhere.
They're weaving Google's AI brain into the daily operational fabric of the world's largest corporations.
And Pichai threw out a metric on the call that highlights the sheer physical toll of all this integration. He said their model APIs, so the doorways developers use to access Google's AI, are now processing approximately 22 billion tokens per minute.
It's hard to even picture that.
And that is up from 16 billion just 3 months ago.
To process 22 billion tokens a minute, you aren't just running standard server racks. You are running a highly localized, incredibly dense power grid.
Right.
You are dealing with advanced fluid dynamics just to pump liquid cooling through server chassis to keep the silicon from literally melting down.
Wow.
Over the last 12 months, more than 2,000 enterprise customers consumed over 100 billion tokens each. This is the industrial scale processing of human knowledge.
But reading through Ashkenazi's comments, they aren't just selling access to their cloud anymore, right? She explicitly mentioned they are recognizing revenue from TPU system sales, which they delivered to customer data centers for the very first time in Q2.
Yes, this is massive.
And TPU being the tensor processing unit, Google's proprietary AI microchip. Historically, if you wanted to use a TPU, you had to rent time on it within Google's own walled garden. It was their secret weapon.
Exactly.
So why are they suddenly packing up their proprietary picks and shovels and shipping them out to other people's mines?
So this is what we're calling the TP Trojan horse, and it represents perhaps the most significant strategic pivot in the entire earnings call.
Okay, explain that.
By allowing customers to physically purchase and install TPU systems in their own private data centers, Google is surrendering its monopoly on its own hardware.
Which sounds crazy at first.
It does. But they are doing this to fundamentally expand their total addressable market, their TAM. They are transforming from a cloud service provider into an enterprise hardware vendor.
Stepping right onto NVIDIA's turf.
Exactly. Stepping directly into a space traditionally dominated by NVIDIA and legacy server manufacturers.
I'm struggling with the logic there, though. If you have the best chip, and the only way people can use it is to pay you a monthly fee to access your cloud, why give them the option to buy the chip outright and just walk away?
Because a massive segment of the global economy simply cannot use the public cloud.
Oh, because of regulations.
Yes. Think about sovereign governments, global defense contractors, heavily regulated healthcare conglomerates, multinational banks.
Wait, they can't have their data out there.
Their internal security protocols and data privacy compliance mandates strictly prohibit them from sending their most sensitive proprietary data to a server owned by Google, Amazon, or Microsoft.
Okay, that makes sense.
They demand on-premise compute servers physically located inside their own heavily guarded buildings.
So by refusing to sell the physical TPU, Google was just locked out of that massive, highly lucrative market segment.
Exactly. And by selling the hardware directly, Google finally captures those clients.
Got it.
Ashkenazi noted that the revenue recognized this quarter from these sales was pretty small, since they are still building inventory, but they expect a massive ramp up as they exit 2026.
Right, planting the seeds now.
Yeah, with the vast majority of revenue from these multi-year agreements hitting the books in 2027.
And the pipeline for that future revenue is massive. She revealed that the Google Cloud backlog increased by more than $50 billion sequentially.
In just one quarter.
Right, reaching an enormous $514 billion in the second quarter.
A $500 billion backlog is a foundational bedrock for a corporation.
It's guaranteed money.
Exactly. A backlog represents legally binding contracts that customers have signed, committing to spend that specific amount of money over a set period of time, usually 3 to 5 years.
Right.
It means a $500 billion of future revenue is already locked in. The financial predictability that provides to Alphabet is exactly what justifies the $44.9 billion they just burned in CapEx.
They already know exactly who is going to pay them back for those servers.
Exactly.
So the enterprise infrastructure side is just a runaway freight train. They are selling the cloud software, they are selling the physical chips, and they have $500 billion lined up at the door.
Yep.
But none of that hardware matters if the cognitive software running on it isn't the absolute best in the world.
That's the catch.
Right. For a Fortune 100 bank to commit billions of dollars to Google infrastructure, Google has to prove they are winning the model war.
And the pace of their model releases discussed on the call is just relentless.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
Just the day before the earnings call, they announced new models, Gemini 3.6 Flash and 3.5 Flashlight. They also launched Gemini 3.5 Flash Cyber.
Okay, wait, there's more.
Yeah. Furthermore, they highlighted that their open source Gemma family of models hit 900 million downloads, with the latest Gemma 4 models hitting 300 million downloads just since April.
I mean, it is an absolute alphabet soup of branding. Gemini, Gemma, Flash Pro, Light, Cyber. It's overwhelming even for people who follow the industry closely.
Oh, totally.
But Pichai made a strategic point that kind of clarified their approach. He called the Gemini Flash series their workhorse.
Right.
He said they are seeing massive enterprise demand for it because it hits the sweet spot of performance and cost. They're explicitly not trying to build one giant omnipotent God model to solve every single problem. They are aggressively tiering their AI.
You know, the best way to understand this tiering strategy is to look at a hospital triage system.
Okay, how so?
If you walk into an emergency room with a scraped knee, they do not page the chief of neurosurgery to put a Band-Aid on you.
Right, obviously.
It would be an astronomical waste of highly specialized, incredibly expensive resources. They send a triage nurse.
That makes perfect sense.
So building and running a massive frontier model like the Gemini 4 they mentioned is currently in pre-training is the neurosurgeon.
Right, it's expensive.
It requires vast amounts of memory bandwidth and computational power for every single inference. You do not use the neurosurgeon to answer a basic customer service query about a return policy or to, summarize a 3-paragraph internal email.
You use the triage nurse. And in this case, the nurse is the Flash model.
Precisely. Google has engineered the Flash models to have fewer parameters, meaning they require significantly less compute to run.
So they're cheaper.
Vastly cheaper, incredibly fast, and specifically tuned for everyday high-volume tasks. If a multinational corporation wants to deploy an AI agent to handle 10 million customer service chats a day, the inference cost of using a massive frontier model would literally bankrupt them.
They need it to be cheap.
They want the Flash model. Pichai noted that 3.6 Flash jumped over 10 points in the Deep Suite benchmark for coding compared to the 3.5 version in just 6 weeks.
That's a huge jump.
That rapid capability improvement on the cheap, efficient models is what really dictates enterprise profit margins.
Now, this strategy makes logical sense, but it did open them up to a very pointed critique during the Q&A portion of the call.
Oh yeah, the Doug Aneth question.
Yeah, Doug Aneth, an analyst from JP Morgan, effectively called them out on the public perception of their AI leadership.
It was awkward.
He pointed out that other AI labs, he didn't name them, but the implication of OpenAI and Anthropic was very loud and clear, are constantly dropping shiny new capabilities, generating massive hype, and pushing the boundaries of what consumers think AI can do.
Right.
He basically asked, is Google struggling to stay at the frontier of AI capability? And he specifically pointed out a perceived gap in enterprise coding capabilities.
Yeah, it was a tense moment, but Pichai's response was highly revealing regarding Google's overarching philosophy.
What did he say?
He didn't deflect or spin the narrative. He admitted that the frontier of AI research is fiercely dynamic and acknowledged there are areas where Google needed to improve.
He admitted it.
Yeah, specifically citing agentic coding, which is the ability of an AI to autonomously write, test, and deploy code as an area where his engineering teams are intensely focused right now.
Okay, but how did he defend their position?
His counterargument fundamentally redefined what the defensive moat is in the AI war. We assume the moat is simply possessing the smartest, highest storing base model.
Right, the highest benchmark.
But Pichai argued that a standalone AI chatbot with a high benchmark score is essentially just a parlor trick if it isn't integrated. The real moat is the full-stack, secure enterprise solution.
So he is saying that the AI model itself is just a raw ingredient.
Exactly. An enterprise doesn't want a smart chatbot sitting in a vacuum. They want AI embedded into a larger, secure workflow.
Give me an example of that.
So Pichai used the example of pairing the Gemini 3.5 Flash Cyber model with their CodeMender agent.
Okay.
In this workflow, the AI doesn't just act as a coding assistant you chat with. It autonomously scans a massive corporate code base, finds security vulnerabilities, prioritizes the threat level, writes the necessary patch, tests it, and deploys it.
Wow, so it's doing the whole job.
Yeah. He noted that 90% of the Fortune 100 are Google Cloud security users, and they saw a 45% quarter-over-quarter increase in the number of AI workloads scanned and protected.
That's a huge increase.
It is about integrating threat intelligence, automated scanning, and code remediation into a single ecosystem that a chief information security officer actually trusts.
And that really explains his focus on their anti-gravity agent development kit. He said it reached 70 million total downloads and has 2.4 million weekly active users.
It's massive adoption.
Right. They aren't just selling AI models, they are blanketing the developer community with the tools to build custom autonomous agents that live securely inside Google's infrastructure.
Yeah.
He gave an internal example that highlights why enterprises care about this way more than benchmark scores. He said a team working on the Chrome browser used model-driven refactoring to compress a 2-year development timeline into just 3 months.
2 years into 3 months? That's absurd.
That is an 8x acceleration in productivity. I mean, if you can sell an 8x increase in engineering velocity to a Fortune 100 bank, they do not care if a competitor's standalone model scores 2 points higher on a standardized math test.
No, not at all.
They care about the integrated efficiency.
The enterprise side is clearly thriving, but we have to pivot to the fundamental core of Alphabet's empire.
Like the golden goose.
Right. All of this cloud expansion, the DPU manufacturing, the agent development kits, it is all funded by their oldest, most historically profitable cash cow, consumer search. And this is the exact sector that had Wall Street in a state of sheer panic just a year or two ago.
Oh, the existential dread surrounding Google search was palpable. The dominant narrative was that AI chatbots were the quote-unquote Google killer.
Right, the end of the search engine.
The logic seemed sound. Why would anyone type a query into a search bar, scroll through 10 blue links, and click on websites to hunt for an answer when an AI could just generate the perfect synthesized answer directly on the screen?
It made sense at the time.
And the terrifying corollary for Alphabet was that if people stopped scrolling through search results and clicking on links, Google's advertising monopoly instantly collapses.
The fear was that AI would essentially burn down the library of the internet, and Google's business model would go up in flames with it. But analyzing the numbers from Q2 2026, the exact opposite has occurred. Search and other revenue grew 17% to $63 billion for the quarter.
$63 billion in a quarter.
Retail and finance drove the largest contributions. Instead of burning down the library, generative AI has simply become the world's most terrifyingly efficient librarian.
I love that analogy.
And it turns out this librarian is incredibly adept at showing you highly targeted, lucrative ads while it fetches your books.
It is a classic example of technology expanding a market rather than replacing it. Sundar Pichai stated that AI continues to drive an expansionary moment in search.
Yeah.
They have fully merged their AI overviews, the summaries at the top of the page, and their conversational AI mode into one seamless search experience.
Right.
And since expanding AI mode globally last October, they have surpassed 1 billion monthly active users.
It's a staggering scale.
1 billion people are interacting with an AI-first search interface every single month. And Pichai emphasized that these AI features are driving incremental increases in search queries.
People are searching more, not less.
Right. People aren't searching less. They are asking more complex, multi-layered, specific questions because they know the AI can actually decode them.
Yep.
And crucially, he explicitly stated they are now sending billions of clicks to external websites every week through these AI features. They have preserved the web ecosystem. They are still the primary traffic cop of the internet.
But the real triumph here isn't just the user adoption. It's the underlying computational economics.
How so?
Well, serving an AI-generated answer requires vastly more compute power than returning a simple index of web links. It is fundamentally more expensive to generate text on the fly.
Sure, it costs way more energy.
However, Pichai noted that through relentless engineering and hardware optimizations, they have reduced the cost of AI mode responses to their lowest level since launch.
Wait, how exactly do you drive down the cost of something that computationally heavy? It's still crunching the same data, right?
Well, it's through a combination of techniques like model quantization.
What's that?
It's basically reducing the precision of the numbers the AI uses to calculate, which saves massive amounts of memory. And they also use speculative decoding, where smaller models predict the output of larger models to speed up generation. So they are ruthlessly driving down the cost of the query while simultaneously increasing the value of the advertisements shown next to it.
Which is Philip Schindler's domain. The chief business officer spent a significant portion of the call detailing exactly how Gemini increases the value of those ads.
Yeah, he had a lot to say.
He explained that Gemini supercharges their ability to decode the nuances of longer, highly detailed queries. Like, if you search for running shoes, that is a very broad intent.
Right, you can want anything.
A traditional search engine shows you generic ads for Nike, Adidas, and Brooks. But if you type a conversational query like, what are the best waterproof trail running shoes for a heavy runner with flat feet going to the Pacific Northwest in November?
A traditional keyword search completely chokes on that.
Exactly. It struggles to parse that intent. But Gemini's reasoning engine understands the exact nuanced context of the user.
And Schindler noted that with shopping ads, this deep understanding drove a 20% improvement in showing highly relevant ads, helping shoppers immediately find the exact match for their complex needs.
That's huge for conversion rates.
It is, but Gemini is doing more than just understanding the user. It is completely revolutionizing the back-end creation process for the advertisers themselves.
Right, making the ads.
Schindler introduced a tool called AI Max, which is now out of beta, and 500,000 advertisers have already adopted it.
500,000.
Stated that advertisers who adopt these AI-powered campaigns see an average of 15% more conversions at a similar return on ad spend.
And he gave a very tangible example that grounds this in reality. AAA Auto Club Enterprises, the massive car insurance provider.
Yep.
They used AI Max to personalize their creative assets, meaning the AI dynamically generated the text, the images, and the formatting of the ads on the fly to capture growth from increasingly detailed, complex insurance searches.
Custom ads for every search.
Right. The result for AAA was a 17% improvement in conversion volume and an 11% decrease in cost per lead.
I mean, when you decrease a major corporation's cost per lead by 11% using an automated software tool, you have secured a customer for life.
Absolutely.
Furthermore, Schindler noted that over half of their small to medium business customers globally now use AI to create or optimize their ad creatives. They are democratizing high-level ad agency capabilities for mom and pop shops, tying them further into the Google ecosystem.
You know, there was a piece of speculation woven into Schindler's comments regarding the future of this ecosystem that has massive implications.
Oh, the UCP.
Yes. He briefly mentioned the rapid adoption of something called the Universal Commerce Protocol, or UCP, alongside a universal card.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
He noted that major merchants, including Target, are already live on this protocol. He said it allows shoppers to add items from different retailers across various Google services and buy them in a single unified checkout experience.
This implies a fundamental shift in how e-commerce operates on the internet.
Big time.
Historically, Google's job was simply to point you in the right direction. You search for a toaster, you click an ad, and Google hands you off to Target's website to finish the transaction.
Right.
The friction exists in that handoff. You wait for Target's site to load, you might have to create a Target account, you have to enter your shipping details, you have to pull out your credit card.
And at any point in that chain, you might just get bored and close the tab.
Exactly, you abandon the cart. But if the Universal Commerce Protocol functions as described, that friction evaporates.
It's gone.
You search for a toaster, you read an AI overview comparing the features of different models, and there is a button right there in the Google search interface that says, Buy from Target. It uses your saved Google Pay credentials with one click.
Google is subtly, quietly transforming from the world's biggest digital billboard into a massive, direct e-commerce storefront.
They are internalizing the transaction.
By removing the friction of the checkout process, they dramatically increase the conversion rates for the retailer. And if the retailer knows an ad on Google is virtually guaranteed to convert because the checkout is frictionless, Google can charge exponentially more for that ad placement.
It is a brilliant, terrifyingly effective closed loop.
So search is evolving into a high-efficiency transaction hub. But we have to recognize that humans don't just use the internet to buy toasters or look up facts.
No, we watch a lot of videos.
A massive, disproportionate share of human attention goes to the internet purely for entertainment. And that attention is driving an entirely different, incredibly lucrative revenue stream for Alphabet. We have to look at the evolution of YouTube.
The financial metrics for YouTube are just stellar across the board. YouTube advertising revenues grew 13% to $11.1 billion for the quarter.
Solid growth.
But the real hidden gem, the metric that signals long-term stability, was in the subscriptions, platforms, and devices category. That segment surged 15% to $12.9 billion.
Wait, $12.9 billion? So subscriptions are bigger than ads now?
Yes. Anna Ashkenazi explicitly stated this surge was driven by YouTube Music and premium subscriptions, as well as the newly integrated Google One AI plans.
Subscriptions are now generating more revenue for Alphabet than YouTube advertising. That is a monumental milestone.
There really is.
But what caught my eye was the sheer scale of the audience capture they are achieving. Sundar pitched a statistic that is genuinely hard to process. Over 1.7 billion unique viewers globally watched FIFA World Cup 2026 related videos on YouTube.
1.7 billion.
1.7 billion unique human beings. That is roughly 1/5 of the entire global population tuning into a single platform for a single event.
And crucially, Philip Schindler pointed out that over 50 million of those people watched the World Cup on their actual televisions, connected TVs, or CTVs.
Right in the living room.
YouTube is no longer just a mobile app you scroll while waiting for a bus or a desktop tab you hide from your boss at work. It has actively conquered the living room. It is aggressively replacing traditional broadcast networks and cable television as the primary screen in the house.
And this ties directly back into that frictionless commerce protocol we just discussed. Schindler announced the launch of Buy with Google Pay, specifically for connected TVs. He said viewers can now complete purchases directly on their TV screens, turning the largest screen in the house into a performance marketing surface.
It's wild to think about.
If we look at the behavioral shift this enables, it's profound. You are sitting on your couch watching a tech creator review a new soundbar on your 65-inch TV. The creator says, "This is the best soundbar of the year."
And you want it.
Previously, if you were influenced to buy it, you had to pull out your phone, open a browser, search for the product, find a retailer, and navigate a checkout process.
Too much friction.
Now, a prompt appears directly on your TV screen. With 2 clicks of your television remote control, utilizing the credit card already stored in your Google profile, you have purchased the soundbar.
Wow.
The friction between the psychological impulse of "I want that" and the reality of "I bought that" has been reduced to absolute zero.
It will completely rewire the mechanics of impulse buying. But they aren't merely turning the television into a storefront. They are fundamentally altering how we interact with the video content itself using generative AI.
Right, using Gemini.
They highlighted a new feature called Ask YouTube, powered by the Gemini models. This is a perfect manifestation of AI utility for the end consumer. 140 million users engaged with Ask YouTube in June alone.
How does it work?
Imagine you are watching an hour-long educational lecture or a dense, complex documentary. You don't have the time to watch the entire video, but you need specific information. You simply type into the interface, summarize the key arguments the speaker makes about monetary policy.
Okay.
The Gemini model instantly analyzes the video's underlying transcript, processes the visual data on screen, synthesizes the summary, and provides exact timestamps so you can jump straight to those specific moments in the video.
That is incredibly useful.
It makes long-form video content searchable, navigable, and interactive in a way it never has been before. It turns every video into an interactive database.
And circling back to the subscription revenue for a second, this is critical for Alphabet's long-term macroeconomic stability.
Oh, absolutely.
The advertising market is historically cyclical and highly sensitive to economic downturns. If there is a global recession, corporate marketing budgets are the first things to get slashed, which immediately impacts Google's bottom line.
Right. Ads dry up fast.
But a $15 a month YouTube Premium subscription that removes ads and gives you access to music, people do not cancel that. Consumer behavior shows they will cancel their gym membership before they cancel their ad-free video streaming.
They really will.
The rapid, sustained growth of these subscriptions offers Alphabet a powerful, predictable hedge against traditional advertising fluctuations. They are locking in recurring, recession-proof revenue.
It provides an incredibly strong financial foundation. But, we must inevitably bring this all back to the physical reality of what they are attempting to achieve here.
Right, the hardware.
Serving real-time AI search results with zero latency to 1 billion users, processing 22 billion enterprise tokens a minute, generating dynamic, personalized ads on the fly, and streaming 4K video to 1.7 billion World Cup viewers simultaneously.
It's a lot of data.
This requires a physical hardware footprint that strains the limits of modern engineering. And it brings us to the most concerning aspect of the entire call, the CapEx crunch.
Yeah, we touched on this massive expenditure at the beginning, but we need to dive deeply into Anat Ashkenazi's updated guidance. Alphabet raised its 2026 full-year CapEx guidance to an eye-watering $195 to $205 billion.
$200 billion.
In a single calendar year. And Ashkenazi was remarkably blunt in her assessment of the situation. She explicitly stated they are supply constrained.
I mean, to hear one of the most powerful, resource-rich, logistically sophisticated companies on Earth publicly admit they are supply constrained is incredibly telling.
It really is.
It means that the bottleneck is no longer financial. No matter how many billions of dollars they throw at the problem, they physically cannot manufacture or procure enough silicon chips, they cannot build enough server racks, and they cannot pipe enough electricity into their data centers fast enough to meet the insatiable demand.
Right, demand from their enterprise customers and the training requirements of their own frontier AI models.
Exactly.
She broke down the spend again. 60% of that $200 billion goes to servers, 40% to data centers and networking infrastructure.
Yeah.
And Pichai highlighted some of the insane engineering acrobatics they are performing to manage this constraint. He mentioned the deployment of the Virgo network.
Oh, this is fascinating.
This is an architecture designed to connect 1 million AI accelerators, so chips spread across multiple physical data center sites, into a single unified supercomputer. They are trying to make 1 million disparate chips act as one cohesive brain, overcoming the latency of geography.
Because they can't get enough power in one spot.
Right. He also highlighted their new custom-built Axion CPU, which he claims provides 30% better performance per dollar than competing chips. They are squeezing every conceivable drop of efficiency out of the hardware because they simply cannot get enough of it.
But even with custom CPUs and the Virgo network acting as a unified brain, it is not enough to meet the demand. And this led to one of the most surprising, almost jarring moments on the earnings call.
What was that?
Ashkenazi announced that in Q3, Alphabet is deploying a bridging strategy to expand the use of third-party capacity to meet demand. She admitted this strategy will apply downward pressure to their cloud operating margins in the near term.
Okay, let's unpack the irony here. Google practically invented the modern hyperscale data center.
They wrote the literal book on it.
Right. They wrote the foundational academic white papers on how to network cheap servers efficiently. They are the architects of the modern cloud. And you are telling me they are so utterly overwhelmed by demand that they actually have to go out and rent compute capacity from third-party competitors.
That's true.
The analyst from Barclays, Ross Sandler, even brought up a heavily rumored SpaceX compute deal during the Q&A. Google, a $2 trillion tech giant, is allegedly renting server space from Elon Musk's company just to keep the lights on and the models running.
It sounds absurd on its face, but it highlights the sheer desperation and the strategic stakes of the AI arms race. We have to analyze the economics of this bridging strategy because Sundar Pichai's defense of it reveals how they view the long-term landscape.
Walk me through it.
Okay, imagine a massive Fortune 500 company comes to Google Cloud and says, we want to sign a 10-year, $5 billion contract to migrate our entire global enterprise architecture onto Gemini, but we need the compute capacity to start next month.
Yep.
If Google says, we are sorry, we are currently out of physical servers, check back with us in 2027 when our new data center in Ohio comes online, that Fortune 500 customer doesn't wait.
No, they go to Amazon.
They walk straight across the street to Microsoft Azure or AWS. And once an enterprise of that size migrates their architecture to a cloud provider, they are locked in. They're lost to Google for a decade, perhaps forever.
Because the switching costs for a massive corporation to move from AWS to Google Cloud are so phenomenally high that you have to win the deal the exact moment they are ready to sign.
Exactly. Therefore, taking a short-term margin hit to rent wildly expensive third-party compute from someone like SpaceX makes perfect, ruthless business sense when the alternative is losing a massive multi-year enterprise client.
Right.
Pichai explicitly defended this by saying, while a short-term cost over a few months may be very high, in the lifetime of the deal as we bring more capacity on, it is highly ROI positive.
So it is a calculated strategic sacrifice. It makes this quarter's spreadsheet look slightly worse in terms of margins, but it secures the empire for the next decade.
They are essentially subsidizing the customer's transition. They will rent the wildly expensive luxury apartment for the customer for 6 months while Google finishes building the customer's mega mansion just to ensure the customer doesn't move to a different neighborhood altogether.
That's a great way to put it. It is a fascinating look at the lifetime value, or LTV, of a cloud customer. Now, while the core business wrestles with these intense, near-term constraints of silicon manufacturing, supply chain logistics, and the power grid, Alphabet is still actively, aggressively funding the distant sci-fi future. We have to look at Other Bets, their moonshot division.
The financials for the Other Bets division are always a jarring contrast to the rest of the company. In Q2, this division generated only $382 million in revenue against a staggering $1.8 billion operating loss.
Ouch.
Yeah, to traditional value investor who focuses purely on quarterly returns, a division losing nearly $2 billion every 3 months is a massive glaring red flag.
But you can't evaluate that $1.8 billion loss in a vacuum. You have to frame it within the broader context of a company making $40.8 billion in operating profit overall.
Right.
A $1.8 billion loss is essentially a rounding error. It's a drop in the bucket. This division is their R&D lab for interacting with the physical world. And the updates they provided on the call show that these long-term bets are finally beginning to mature and scale.
Take Waymo, for instance, their autonomous driving division. Pichai noted that they introduced Wahai, their 6th-generation autonomous driver, to public riders. The business is rapidly moving out of the experimental phase and into operational scaling.
Wow.
Or consider Wing, their drone delivery service. They safely completed their 1 millionth home delivery and are aggressively expanding their commercial partnerships, including a major rollout with Papa John's.
The visual of an autonomous drone dropping off a hot pepperoni pizza in someone's backyard is just peak 2026.
It really is.
But what does it actually mean in the larger strategic context of this massive earnings call? Why does the CEO of Google care about pizza delivery?
Well, if we connect the disparate dots across this earnings report, we see a clear trajectory. The massive disembodied AI models trained in the Google Cloud are beginning to bleed into the physical world.
Okay, how so?
Artificial intelligence is no longer confined to being a chatbot on your phone screen or an autocomplete feature in your email. It is becoming a physical entity. It is the intelligence navigating a 6th-generation autonomous vehicle safely through the chaotic, unpredictable streets of San Francisco.
Right.
It is the complex logistical brain coordinating thousands of drones flying pizzas to backyards simultaneously without colliding in midair.
And Pichai also specifically highlighted Isomorphic Labs, which just raised over $2 billion for its AI drug design engine.
Yes.
They are using the intelligence of Google's deep learning systems to simulate the molecular structure and binding properties of the next generation of blockbuster pharmaceutical drugs. They are moving from organizing bits of data to manipulating physical atoms.
The physical manifestation of AI is the true overarching endgame for Alphabet. Their original mission statement was to organize the world's information.
Which they did.
They have achieved that. Now they are actively navigating, manipulating, and delivering the physical world based on that information. The $1.8 billion quarterly loss in other bets is simply the price of admission to own the foundational infrastructure of the future physical economy.
So let's step back and summarize the incredible, overwhelming scale of Alphabet in Q2 2026. What we are witnessing is a legacy tech giant successfully navigating the most dangerous existential transition in its history.
Absolutely.
They are integrating generative AI into every single facet of their business without killing their golden goose search ads. In fact, through engineering efficiency and higher conversion rates, they made search even more profitable.
It's incredible execution.
At the same time, they are building a $500 billion cloud backlog, fundamentally altering the e-commerce landscape with the Universal Commerce Protocol and transforming themselves into a premier enterprise hardware vendor by shipping TPUs directly to clients.
They have defied the corporate gravity we discussed at the very beginning of the show. They have accelerated their growth at a scale that breaks traditional financial modeling.
Yeah.
But it comes at the steep cost of immense capital expenditure and a reliance on a physical supply chain that is currently stretched to its absolute breaking point.
And that brings us to the relevance of this deep dive for you, the listener. The next time you type a highly specific query and get an AI overview, or you click Buy with Google Pay on a YouTube video from your couch, or you just save a document to Google Drive, you have to recognize that you aren't just using a free, disconnected service.
You're part of the machine.
You are actively participating in a massive, continuous feedback loop. Your everyday actions, your complex queries, your impulse purchases, they are providing the essential training data and generating the ad revenue that justifies a $200 billion capital expenditure.
Yeah.
You are the engine that allows them to buy the servers, to rent the power grid, to lay the fiber optic cables, and to train the next generation of models.
It is a symbiotic, codependent relationship operating on a planetary scale.
I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder, because the implications of this earnings call stretch far beyond software.
Let's hear it.
For the last 30 years, the anxiety surrounding technology was focused on whether the software would ever be smart enough. Would AI ever be able to pass the Turing test? Could it write coherent code? Could it safely drive a car? We focus entirely on the limits of human ingenuity and software design.
Right, the brain power.
But looking at Google's desperate race to build massive data centers, looking at their willingness to run a negative free cash flow of $6 billion in a single quarter, and looking at their strategic sacrifice to rent third-party servers from SpaceX just to keep up with enterprise demand, it becomes clear that the bottleneck for the future isn't software ingenuity anymore.
No, it's the physical world.
The bottleneck is concrete. It's the global supply of copper wire. It's the sheer staggering amount of electricity required to run 1 million silicon chips as a single unified supercomputer. It's the physical land needed to house these massive facilities near water sources for cooling.
That's the real constraint.
So here's the question. Are we rapidly approaching a breaking point where the digital world, the realm of AI and instant generation, is evolving faster than the physical world can physically build the hardware to support it?
It's a great question.
Will the ultimate limit on artificial intelligence not be human imagination or algorithmic efficiency, but simply the raw, unforgiving constraints of physics, global supply chains, and the electrical power grid?
It's something to think about.
Think about that blue whale we started with, the one with the heart rate of a hummingbird. The metabolism is incredible. It's a marvel to watch it move so fast. But eventually, a heart beating that fast in a body that large requires an entire ocean's worth of energy just to survive another day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.